Hey y'all, welcome to today's episode on the Playmaker podcast. I have a special guest today. My dad, David Hudson, is on here with us. And we're going to be talking as we're going through this series about being healthy through the holidays. We know that there's so much more about our health than just the food that we put in our bodies. And finances are a big part of our life. And therefore, that affects our health. And so, my dad is basically the expert in my life about finances and all things money and budgeting and all that good stuff that I know nothing about. And so, I thought that it would be really cool to have him come on today and talk about how can we be healthy with our finances during this Christmas season. So I'm really excited to have my dad on today because he is the president and CEO of his own tax and accounting firm. It's called Legacy Consulting Group in Lexington, Kentucky. And he does all things from financial planning and consulting with different individuals and families and small businesses to doing all the tax prep and work and boring accounting stuff. But I'm very thankful for him and his practice and his team and all they do because that's something that I could not care less about. So I'm thankful we have them in our lives. So, Dad, as we're getting into the heart of the shopping season for this holiday, like Christmas, we spend more money during the Christmas time than any other time of the year. And we've already got all the hustle and bustle going on that this season entails. How can we be healthy with our finances in this season?
Money's one of those things that affects everybody. We all spend it the same way.
The same 5 ways, right?
The same 5 ways. Whether you make a little or a lot, we spend it on taxes, insurance, debt, savings, and life. And life is one of those things that just kind of gets in the way. It just happens. Some people it just kind of it's free will. They just spend it without any type of thought or process or plan or budget, which is that ugly word that everybody really hates, especially if you're in my house. We pretty much fly by the seat of our pants a lot of time. And at the end of the day, sometimes you get home and you sit down and you look at what all you've done. Some days you got to back up and get a game plan for what you're doing in your finances. And it's not easy for everybody. Some people are great at making lists. Some people are great at following through. Some people are not. And that's okay. It doesn't matter which one of those areas you fall into. This time of year can add stress to your finances. And it's important that we all realize that and get control of it so that it doesn't come back and bite us later.
So I know that me included, everyone has been setting money aside all year long. Like we've got our Christmas fund ready, that we're not stressed out at all. We're ready to just go shopping and do our thing. But then there might also be some of us who maybe have never even heard that word until today when we were talking about this prep, that we need to talk about what do we do if we don't have a Christmas fund?
Well, you either have to adjust your spending, and there's a variety of ways to do that, or you have to create cash. Some people think that means working extra shifts, making more money, cutting other expenses that you have, but there's different ways of creating cash to get money into your bank account without costing yourself extra time at the office or at your job or taking a second job. We all have stuff that we don't use. We all have things that we pay for that are not necessary. There are things that we came up with one day that said, hey, we think this is a good idea. We sign up for a membership or a subscription. And all of a sudden, that plus the next one and the next one adds up to a lot of dollars. It's not hard to sit down and look at your monthly bills and figure out areas to cut. Some people like to have New Year's resolutions and they'll sign up for gym memberships and they start out with a good plan, and then life happens and they don't use them as frequently. You can put those things on pause. You can pause subscriptions. You can pause memberships. Adds $20 a month and another $10. The next thing you know, you've got $50 or $100 a month that is readily available in your budget. Another thing is just looking at where you spend your money, whether you are a Starbucks coffee shop type of person. That stuff adds up over time. You can make coffee at home for a month or cut back on eating out or running through the drive-thru.
I mean, if we think about that, like with coffee, because that's like, especially for me as a college student, I love to go camp out at a coffee shop all day long, and I'll order at least one drink. Obviously, if I'm going to sit in there, I'm going to order from them, but sometimes I'll get two. And I mean, every coffee is a minimum of $5, right, to get a good latte. And so I know I went every single day to a different coffee shop one week to study, and I got a lot done. But I looked at my bank account at the end of the week, and I had spent about $30 on coffee in 1 week. And that was a wake up call for me. That was like, girlfriend, you can do this at home. You don't need to go buy coffee from them all the time. And so that was just a little pivot that I had to do that I think a lot of especially college students can relate to. But I love what you said about the drive-through, because that's something else that can rack up really quick. When we have food in our pantry, we have food in the fridge that we can pack a lunch instead of going out to eat during lunch break, or just if we're going to be out running errands and we know that we're not going to be home for a while, just doing that extra step to plan ahead so we're not wasting the extra dollars when we already have what we need, because it's really important to just start with what we have first.
One of the things that I think is pretty popular, I see ads on TV. We're all sucked in by the marketing and all the materialism and stuff that goes on out there. And you see ads on TV like the Rakuten and a lot of the other cashback apps that you can sign up for. There's coupons that you can add to your phone, just like going to Kroger and things like that. You can do digital coupons. So when you go to the grocery, you can actually get some of those coupons, get some of those cashback bonuses that are out there from these different services that actually are ways to put money back in your pocket without you have to do extra work. There's all types of programs out there. You just got to do a little bit of research. And if you'll do a little bit now, you can pay for Christmas without having to carry over a big credit card balance or something in January and create all kinds of financial stress for yourself, which is usually what happens. And when you do that, with interest and late charges and all those extra things, you usually pay for Christmas about twice as much as it really costs you when you stand and really figure out the numbers.
So when we're starting with what we have, something that we've started doing, like my sisters and I, is going through our closets and figuring out what clothes are we not wearing anymore. And instead of donating them to Goodwill every single time, which some of them we obviously still do, but some of that stuff we've only worn a handful of times. Some of it still has the tags on it. And so we have found things like Poshmark and Facebook Marketplace, putting them on your Instagram stories and selling those. You can make $100 real easily by just looking in your closet. Another thing are just different things around the house, different cleaning tools or little mugs, things like that. Maybe that's toys that your kids don't play with anymore that you just want to have a yard sale. Do something quick and easy like that to just get rid of some things, declutter, and also bring in a little bit of extra cash with things you already have but you don't use.
One thing, Maggie, we talked about earlier was that how many of us have gift cards in our wallet or our purses or in our drawers, that, or a birthday card that grandma gave us and they give us a $25 gift card that we haven't used. Go dig all those out. I'm not suggesting you re-gift those. I'm saying use those to help use them for purchases so you don't have to spend cash. You've already got cash. It's just starting in the form of a gift card. We all have those. It's such a common thing, and I'm terrible about using them. If you ever want to get me something, don't get me a gift card. Not my favorite thing.
So as we were talking a little bit before we started, you mentioned to me that on average, just based on a lot of different studies that you've seen, because that's what you study, is that Americans spend on average about $1,200 on gifts alone during this time.
Right.
That's a lot. That's more than some people make in a month. And so walk us through, what are some practical things we can do so that when we do go out, we're not just overspending on things that we really don't need?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to coming up with a plan. I think, first of all, you got to figure out who are you going to buy for. So there's a lot of different expenses that come up in Christmas. There's the gifts we're going to buy for our friends and family. You know, we've got kids in school, so we've got teachers and we've got other things like that we usually do. There's food. There's the travel cost if you're traveling to see family at Christmas time. There's the decorations for your home and things like that you spend money on. A lot of those things people don't think about, but it adds up. And so I'm a list guy. So I'm always going to say, make a list. Make a list of who you're going to buy for, and then put a limit to how much you're going to spend on those people and figure out how much that's going to be. And if you can't manage that, I don't like gift cards, but you know what? You can get gift cards and control that spending, and then your problem is solved. But honestly, if you have a budget for $50 a person for somebody and you find the perfect gift for somebody and it's $35, that's great. You don't have to buy them another something to make up the difference to get them to 50. Because guess what? My guess is you're not going to do it. You're going to spend 60 instead of 50 because it's not going to work out perfect. But you could take that same $15 and put it back in your little pot to use somewhere else in your Christmas spending for the year. But I think a list is the biggest thing. But you've also got to make a list for the grocery. You got to make a list for the decorations. You got to keep up with it. Don't go out and just wander.
Mindlessly spend.
Go out and with a plan.
Right.
Go with a purpose. And I think that's the biggest thing to help people keep control of their spending.
That's really good. I mean, even for groceries, I think that was so good because that's something practical we can take into all year long.
Right.
Is instead of just knowing, oh, it's Saturday, I need to go to Kroger, and just getting everything that looks good, then go in with a purpose and a plan of what you're going to make that week, what you're low on, so that you don't overspend. That's really good. Now, we are really big movie people, and especially at Christmas time, we love Christmas movies. And he said something to me earlier today. He quoted The Grinch. And so I want you to just share what you said to me.
The world is very materialistic these days, and we watched The Grinch already this year. And one of the things that I remember in the story in the movie, it says the Grinch says how all the people of Whoville just bought presents and presents and presents, and they thought that was what was important. But where do all those presents end up? And he always says they end up in the garbage.
In your garbage chutes, and they come to me.
So think about it.
Right?
Quantity is what the marketing people tell you that you want. You want to buy lots of presents and you want to get all this stuff. But I think really the Christmas season is more about the quality of what you do and not so much about the quantity of what you do. And so in all years, 2020, and a lot of the things I listen to, we've all had to pivot. We've had to pivot from our normal way of doing things.
Yeah, for sure.
And this year, people have lost their jobs. They've been on unemployment. Their businesses shut down. Restaurants are not open. Retail establishments have been affected. We're shifting to buy more online. And you know what? People are going to understand. If you've been doing it a certain way for a long time, people are going to understand this year. If you go, I just couldn't do as much this year, you don't have to impress anybody. Do what you can do. Do it. Use this year as a way to start with a clean slate and reset a new way of moving forward, because some of the old ways we've all had have not been healthy for us.
Right.
This is a great way, great time, whether it's what you plan for or not, it's a great time to make a change and let that be the new way of life for us.
Yeah, that was really good because I think I'm just thinking back to quarantine, because when we were in quarantine, like, I didn't spend much money shopping because we had no idea when we were going to get to be out again. So I didn't have to like dress up and look nice to impress you or the rest of our family. Like, we were hanging out and just focusing on being with each other because we didn't really have another option. And we're kind of still in lockdown. And so we don't need all these glamorous things. Like, I think it really showed us that, like, our family, the important thing is who we're with and the memories we get to make together. And none of those have to do with materialistic things. It's all about building relationships. And so I think I love what he just talked about, because it's so much more important to focus on the relationships this year and not the gift giving and the monetary value. We don't have to keep up with everyone else. Like, if we need to turn our social media off and not focus on what they're doing, then that's what we need to do this season, and that's okay. We've had to pivot in a lot of ways, and Christmas doesn't have to be as big and extravagant in the gift-giving sense as normal. All right, so we've covered a lot of different things that we can do, from going ahead and making a list to knowing who we need to buy for, making a set amount for what we're going to do for them so we're not mindlessly shopping. In addition to that, making a list for our grocery shopping and counting in food and our travel expenses with that. And we're going to try to be, creating cash starting with what we have and getting some extra income that way. But what is something that we can do now to start setting us up for the future? Because I love the quote, failing to plan is planning to fail. And so what is something that we can start doing right now to put ourselves ahead in 2021 so we're not scrambling when it comes time to start Christmas shopping?
Just like in every part of your budget, your household spending, I think coming up with a budget is one area, and you don't have to do a whole budget for your whole year for every month, every category. While I think that's great, I don't think that that's feasible for everybody. So for Christmas, think about what that budget looks like for you and for that part of what you want to spend. And if that's $1,800 or that's $2,000, break that amount down over 12 months. And in January, start taking a little bit aside every month, putting it in a savings account, and then adding to it. So next year, this time, you don't have to worry about Poshmark and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do that, that's great. But you don't have to figure out how to create cash, or you can use those things throughout the year to help build that cash fund, that Christmas fund up. The same for vacations or anything big. Use a little bit of a budget plan to set money aside on purpose. Be intentional. I think that's where it starts, really.
So what's like a good tangible number? Like, is there a set number we should be setting aside, or is it a percentage? Do you have an idea on that?
No, not so much. It really depends on your scale. I mean, it varies for everybody. Again, we spend money the same 5 ways.
Right.
So if you have a little or you have a lot, you're going to adjust your Christmas budget to what you can
Right.
work with.
So really, it's about making it a priority. What's that quote? It's like, don't save after you spend, spend after you save. Isn't that right?
I think every dollar we bring home, we ought to set aside a part of it right off the top for saving and for giving, and then the rest of it we can spend.
Yeah, I think that was really helpful. And I know that I have room to grow. I think we all do, because we're always wanting to get 1% better anyway, right? Regardless of how good we already are. So we know that being healthy with our finances is really important always, but especially during the Christmas season when we're typically spending more than normal. And that can cause a lot of stress on families and relationships. Well, next week, I'm going to be talking about how do we handle that stress? How do we work through emotions and manage the stress that comes with the holidays, with different things that are just going to be going on? So, as much fun as budgeting and everything is, I really do love talking about it so much with him, as you can probably tell. And I love when he wants to sit down and talk to me about budgeting at home. But I really am. I do think this was really helpful. And I know that these are things that I need to do a better job of incorporating. And I think we all can, because we're always striving to become 1% better in our lives, right? So seriously, thank you for coming on. I really do think this will be beneficial.
Maggie, nobody really likes talking about money and budgeting, but I think it's really helpful. And I think if somebody can take one nugget away from this, it'll make your Christmas season and your financial stress a little bit less. That's worth it to all of us.
Oh yeah, it is. So there you go, Playmakers. Go out there and get 1% better in your finances today. We'll see you next week.